Well, I dug even deeper, and I found that over here we have the two phone jacks. They were rewired differently. They had a shielded wire coming over to them, and they were non-standard. So I had to take them out, clean them up, clean the old wiring off it, resolder some jumpers and that, rewire them into over in here, and one wire goes somewhere else. But in other words, that had to be done. Then we're still working on the wafer switch. This is the most difficult part, the wafer. He cut all the wires that are on the top of the wafer switch off and removed them from the radio. These wires here, these wires go to the bottom of the wafer switch. The volume control and gain control are wired together. Those wires were cut. He just had two wires up here for the volume control. He got rid of the gain control. And it was all because of that module. Now, that would have been enough itself, all the things he changed to make that module, which makes the radio more narrow at 175 kilohertz. That would have been enough for me to have to work on. But he also rewired the output tube. And what makes it really difficult is this is an RCA-0. And it's similar to a BC348-E, but not exact. So I don't have an exact pictorial for this radio. I got to kind of improvise. So every wire that's missing, or I got to track down over an hour. All right. Here's two wires here. He cut so close to the wire harness I couldn't even see they were there. And then I was looking, I said, those are two wires there. And of course, soldering to the old wires can be really a pain. So I added two wires. I had to extend these two wires, and they go up to the wafer switch. So anything that had to do with the AVC, automatic volume control, automatic gain control, whatever you want to call that circuit, he cut out. And he put a automatic gain control on the top of the radio and drilled a hole. Instead of using the gain control here, he decided to put another hole in the front of the radio. He made a lot of bad choices. He made several mistakes, and very sloppy workmanship, really bad. And these lugs take a lot of extra heat. The wiring is actually asbestos wires. It's cloth and asbestos. This is the hardest repair I've ever had to do. And I know there are people on the internet that take a radio totally apart, but it's not at the magnitude of one of these. These radios, there's a lot to them. They really put all the extra, I won't say bells and whistles, but all the extra parts in it, figuring, well, we might need that. And this is the one with the 4th IF. This has stuff that the economy model, the newer ones, don't have. And just the amount of capacitors that you have to change sitting here will boggle the mind. The newer model, maybe there's 10 capacitors you have to change. This has twice as many that have to be changed. So this is really a piece of work, but I've been working on it every day, a little bit at a time, several wires a day. And I got my printer cartridge working. I had a printer refill kit. And you peel the label back, you put the nozzle, the needle in there, and you squirt the ink into the foam. There's a piece of foam in there. And you close it back up. And you might have to clean the nozzle by putting the thing. It didn't work. So I said to myself, after a while, I said, you know what? Let it sit in the printer overnight. Maybe the ink will work its way down through the foam. And it did. It works. So, in other words, I have to print out pages of the schematic and put notes there and then bring them over to the radio. When I first started this, I was looking at the computer, trying to memorize it in my head, then come over here. And it's at my age, it gets really hard to do. And that's sort of what's holding me back. I'm not as sharp as I used to be. And I'm up against a radio that physically it's a pain in the ass to work on. Look at the depth of how deep from here. Look at this, how deep the sockets are that you have to solder down. You have to put your solder iron down that far to solder a wire. It's not like a regular AA5, All American 5 kitchen radio or countertop radio. This thing is a beast. Now, if you go really looking around, you'll find stories that people said during World War II, when one of these come in for repair, the guys would check the tubes, a couple other things, and basically, if that didn't fix it, they put it off to the side, because this radio was built in module form. In other words, this wiring harness would be dropped down in here. All the wiring is done harnessed, it's laced, and they would put these modules of parts that have been wired up. They put them in, and then they drop the harnesses down and then wire them up. So in other words, this thing is not made to really be troubleshot. And I know that, and I know it's going to be tough, but I've basically agreed with myself to do several wires a day, and eventually it'll get done. And I want to make sure every wire I put in this is in the right place. Forgetting a wire is one thing, but putting a wire in the wrong place, it can make you go in circles, all right? Because you're not troubleshooting a radio that just went bad. You're troubleshooting a radio that has been done over by a human being or bodged, all right? And that's where I'm at now. I just want to show you. And if you ever get something this bad, I suggest you email the guy and send it back. If you're not into radios your whole life, this could be a real headache. You're going to get, and then once you start working on it, you can't send it back. You want a radio that is wired correctly. It's just a matter of changing some capacitors, building a power supply. And don't forget jumper pin 2 to pin 6 on the back of the radio. Do not forget that. If the Jones plug isn't jumpered between 2 and 6, the radio will be in transmit mode and it won't pick up anything. Okay, I think that's it. All right, that's it for today.